Well, hello YouTube, my fellow machinists, and in particular, you Baldor fans. Mad Eddie here, and welcome to the Man-Style Monster Machine Shop. I'm going to be talking about Baldor grinders and introducing a concept. This is chapter 3 in my series of videos, and the title of this one is the Baldor Alien Connection. And so you're going to be seeing a world premiere of a concept here, which has served me well, and I'll be introducing that here shortly. But first, the backstory. I got into machining about 20 years ago, and I needed a grinder. So I ran down to my local Home Depot and picked up a Delta. It serves me well, ran fine, was perfect for most small projects, and then eventually I realized I needed a wire wheel. So I bought another Delta and put wire wheels on it. And that also worked well, served me fine. But over the years I came to realize one thing. If I leaned too hard into the wire wheel, it would heat up pretty fast. If I leaned up even harder, it would stop running. And there was even one time when I leaned into it where it just stalled and started humming. So I flipped it off, had to let it cool down, flipped it back on, and then it started working again. So most of my projects would take me about 2.5 to 3 hours, and I just learned to work with the overheating and not working my machine too hard issue by pacing out my work and incorporating that kind of time frame into my projects. So then, as I mentioned in chapter 1, I started learning about other machinists and watching YouTube videos, and I noticed that a lot of the folks whose work I admire, and I mentioned them in chapter 1, as well as some others, tend to gravitate towards Baldor grinders. Now, I'd never heard of Baldor, I had no interest, I didn't even look it up for a while, until I started exploring and considering the idea that I might want a new grinder. And then I looked them up, and my first reaction was, holy cow, why would somebody spend that kind of money on a grinder? Maybe I can get one used. Pick it up pretty cheap. You never know. So that's exactly what I did. I went on eBay, found one that suited my needs, was right about the right size, and of course the price was great. It was really beaten up, rusty, scratched up, but the guy assured me that it ran fine, and the bearings were good, and it was pretty quiet, so I bought it. And it is the exact one that's under my elbow here. So when I received the machine, I did a perfunctory cleaning on it, wired it up, and then used it. Now there's a reason I'm choosing my wording very carefully here, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So I used it, and the first time I used this machine, what used to take me 2.5 to 3 hours took 20 minutes. Holy cow. Now I understand why people buy Baldor grinders. Now the Mad Eddie part. I instantly became a fan and bought a bunch more of them. And in fact, this exact grinder under my elbow is the one I used to clean the subsequent Baldors that I purchased. Now I want to give a shout out to Dale of Make Something Cool here, because here comes the world premiere part. I talked about the Baldor Alien Connection. Well, this exact grinder did not have a switch. So before I actually received it and made the purchase on eBay, I talked to the guy and he said, yes, it runs fine, it's got good bearings, it's quiet, but it doesn't have a switch. So when I wired it up, I didn't have a switch. So I had to come up with something. And then in so doing, I quickly realized that some of the other grinders I have, especially the larger Baldors that are above 2 horsepower, have a cast part that tends to break in the same place. So let me emphasize and illustrate what that looks like. This is the Baldor 1216W that I purchased, and notice that the cast part is broken and actually missing here. Of course, the grinder was all filthy and dirty and rusty, and I knew that. This is the 1401W that I purchased, and notice the cast part is cracked right above where the support rib extends along the spine of the cast part. It was cracked. So the only thing holding these Allen Bradley switches in place is the two bottom parts of the casting that touch the box at the bottom and this wire harness. So that's the other thing I didn't like. I didn't like a wire harness running from the bottom of the machine to a switch on either of these. And since I needed to come up with a switch for this one, thus was born, here's the world premiere part, the alien spine concept. I needed something that would hold the switch and hold the wires, and I would never have to worry about the switch breaking again, nor would anybody else who inherits this machine, because I came up with a concept that is very durable, very rugged, protects the wires, and actually I think looks pretty friggin' cool. So enough without further ado, let's get to it. This is my Baldor 7308 DP. It is the first Baldor I ever bought. And as you can see, as I mentioned in Chapter 2, my first introduction to machining was actually welding. I bought a Miller welder, so I've stuck with the basic Miller black and blue color scheme. And I'm going to take the camera off the tripod here so I can walk around this and show you a little bit more about this. So, Miller black and blue, I had to buy a switch, so I bought a Leviton. But now let me introduce you to the alien spine. And there it is. What I did was I took a really heavy aluminum plate, bent it in my my press, and then bought some U-channel and cut it, and then welded it to shape. So this U-channel has a hole that goes into the base of the unit, has the wires that go up to the switch, and this thing is rock solid. You cannot move this. It's got what I call serious kung fu. It's very durable, very rugged, and I think it looks friggin' cool. What you see attached here are the original left and right nuts because I put on these wheels, so I just attached them to the alien spine just as a place to keep them. But as you can see, this just looks friggin' awesome. Now the other thing I did that was kind of unique, because I needed wire wheels on this, I used a knotted wire, a wire wheel, and a knotted wire. And then this one is actually two different wire wheels. Obviously I have a cup on this end, and I made I bought a left-hand thread nut and brazed a wire bristle onto the end of it. I've also made some additional accessories here for when I need to reach into cavities. This one has a knotted wire on it. This one's got regular wire. And then this one is a short version of this with knotted wire bristles, so that if I need to scrub something particularly hard or difficult to clean, then I can just change that wheel. But this part of it has been very, very handy. When you lean into something, especially a corner, it allows it to sink into the soft bristles and then scrubs the hell out of it with the knotted wire. So, like I said, I've used this one exact machine to clean all of my subsequent Baldors. So, tell your friends. Like I said, it didn't have a switch. I didn't make that. I didn't cover this up. It just came like that. So I had to temporarily wire it to ensure that it was working. And yes, it is very powerful and very quiet. And even after I painted it, it still, it still looks as good and works as great after having done, 5 subsequent grinders, 5 subsequent Baldors, cleaning all the parts for those. It still looks good. So on the paint job, let me just talk about that briefly as well. So it's Krylon paint, and I used the 2K clear coat, and it keeps things looking nice and shiny, and it actually makes them easier to clean too, because dirt doesn't stick to it. So when you're grinding, you're going to get dust down in here. You just do a little flossing with a rag to clean out the center. But and I obviously put on a Leviton switch. I think the color scheme looks fantastic. But there you have it, the alien spine. Now the interesting thing about this is I cut the channel and then had to weld it. The worse of a welding job that you do, the better it fits the motif of the spine. It'll start looking knotty and kind of, clumpy, and that actually enhances the look. So so don't be worried if you want to try something like this for yourself. Don't be worried about doing a poor welding job. It'll probably come out looking even better than you think. Alright, so there you have it. So in the next video I'm going to cover some of my other grinders and how I've embellished this concept for larger machines, and then you know, how it's slightly modified. I've used different switches. I've tried not cutting the channel but bending it, so you'll see that in the next video. But here you have it. Remember, world premiere, chapter 2 of Mad Eddie's Man-Style Monster Machine Shop is the Baldor grinder with an alien spine. Share it with your friends. And thanks for watching, everyone.